Welcome to the Trailbreaker Podcast. I'm Aaron Feinberg. In this podcast, I explore what it takes to be a trailbreaker. Through intimate conversations with people carving new paths across the landscape of business, art, and sport, we dig in on how to excel across seemingly disparate endeavors. What drives people who manage to succeed multidimensionally? Is it how they think? Is it meticulous planning and follow-through? Or is it some measure of delusional optimism? My guest today is Jake Cohn, a professional skier, founder of the Local Sail and SnowLocals, and a public speaker. We talked about his most recent TED Talk, Think Beyond Your Labels, how to keep great ski gear out of landfills, and his time both delighting and traumatizing small children as the skiing melon bear. Good afternoon, Jake, and thank you so much for joining the show today.
Aaron, thanks for having me. It's actually my first podcast, so excited to be here.
You're trail breaking.
I'm trying.
So look, I'm excited to talk to you about all sorts of stuff that you've been up to, ranging from your most recent TED Talk to the work you're doing with Local Sail and also your company SnowLocals. But before we dive in, I want to tell the audience how you and I crossed paths for the first time. I think it's a great story. So, as you probably remember, I don't know how many years ago, maybe 6 or 7, we crossed each other's paths in Baja surfing. And I remember pulling up into this spot. I had snuck away from a friend's wedding and decided to go and surf up the East Cape. And I remember coming down to the beach and seeing this big easy up tent with all these people underneath it. And it looked like the best camp spot ever. I saw, inflatable mattresses. I saw coolers and there you were with a bunch of your friends surfing. And I remember we chatted up and realized we had some similarities and some friends across the ski industry. And then, you were on a blown or recently repaired knee and decided, hey, let's go paddle out. And we wound up catching some waves. And then that turned into, a couple of years later, you're reaching out to work together. But I thought it was just such an awesome organic way to meet both a friend and then a future client.
Yeah. It was 2014 on the East Cape of Baja. And I think that your memory is correct. I don't actually remember how the conversation sparked. I know a lot of people down on the surf beaches of the East Cape. Everyone talks to everybody. So, if you show up at the beach, you'll probably make friends. But I do remember we ended up getting in my car to go check another surf spot. And there was the Baja 1000 happening. And you may not have been able to get back to your wedding or to the wedding party. And I was like, oh, you can just crash at our house. So, but yeah, fun. That was a long time ago, man. Good times down there.
I forgot about that part. You're right. The Baja 1000 race was finishing and it was all those trucks were going to come ripping past where we were surfing. And it was the only road out. And I remember it was either you or somebody else that said, look, if you don't go by, a certain point this afternoon, you're going to be staying here. And, and I think you offered a spot on the inflatable mattress if I needed it.
I think because you left early, right? Did you only surf for one day? I can't remember. But anyway. And then it was a couple years where I think we were in contact a little bit, for 15, 16, 17. And then I think 2018 maybe, or somewhere around then, I really reached out for professional help, with my speaking career. But, I remember it was just kind of, I guess, how our friends go, and I'm happy to be here. Happy it blossomed.
Yeah. It's a fantastic, arc and it's been fun to get to help you on a variety of levels. And we're going to get into some of that really amazing speaking engagements you've been up to, including a TED Talk that you just did in Austria, but I wanted to first kind of touch on, how did you go from this pro skier, which you still are, and obviously we'll get into some of the businesses that you've created around skiing, but then you took this leap into this world of public speaking, which is why you and I originally started working together. And I just want to touch on, how did you get that bug to sort of get out there and start speaking? And then how did you take it from, something you really hadn't done much of to then TED Talk? So let's just start there.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, from our first time working together, from a speech in I think 2019 till the TED Talk, which was in this past September, I think the arc is really, maybe it's gone more parabolic, because I wasn't very I wasn't very good. I mean, I was all right, but now I think I'm at a different level. But yeah, I think it all started. So I've had severe asthma my whole life. I was born 5 months, or excuse me, not 5 months, 5 weeks early. So I was a preemie. As you know, or as people may know, the lungs are one of the last things to develop in an infant. And I came out and I couldn't breathe, and I was intubated, and kind of a recipe or a cocktail of bad scenarios, growing up at such high elevation in Telluride at 9,000 feet. I was learning to walk with an oxygen tank on. A lot of these things really scarred my lungs, where today I have about less than 30% lung function. So it's kind of a bit of a backstory of how my asthma got to be where it is. But I think the catalyst for like the speaking thing, or maybe the giving back thing, it started was after I knew my competition career was over. It was in 2008, I think actually 2009. So in 2008, in summer of 2008, I broke my back and almost paralyzed myself. I was in New Zealand, excuse me, in competition, and I exploded a burst fracture where you explode your vertebrae in my lower back. Couldn't sit or stand for 3 months, had to be flown back from New Zealand on a private medical jet. It was a total horror story, and happy to unpack that more if your listeners want to hear it. But I was kind of stuck for the next year with a broken back, and I was thinking of ways maybe I could help people, or looking at my scenario and said, I have really bad lungs. And I think I actually got the initial light bulb idea of like from a GlaxoSmith commercial or magazine ad where there was a biker or a snowboarder or something, just a horrible photo. And I said, I'm much better than this guy. Maybe he doesn't even have asthma. I should reach out to these drug companies. One thing led to another. I reached out to National Jewish Health, which is the top respiratory hospital in America, it happens to be in Colorado. And it also happened to be that I've been going there since I was a baby for my asthma. So I reached out to them, and they said, oh, we love your story. We know who you are. Let's see if we can get you into maybe like a news interview or do a piece on you on our website. And that kind of one thing led to another, where I ended up having a huge feature advertising campaign around me, where it played 3 years on the Super Bowl. It was in the New York Times like 20 plus times. I had billboards in Denver. It was really cool. And then with that, I was invited, and this is still like 2013, 14. I was invited to speak at one of their events, which is just a minute speech. And that was actually right after I met you. So I don't know if you remember, I was like, Aaron, I'm actually flying to New York from Cabo to go speak at this Airware banquet, which is the foundation in New York City, the kind of the branch of National Jewish. Anyway, I ended up flying from Cabo to New York, wrote the speech on the plane. It was horrible. It was a minute long. They showed my video. Everybody clapped. And it was a pretty cool experience. It was at like the top floor of the New World Trade Center. I was in the Big Apple with my parents. I partied way too hard that night with like a billionaire. It was like a great experience. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And I think that kind of after that, I was like, okay, maybe I want to explore if this speaking thing is possible. And obviously you have to really walk before you can run, or crawl before you can walk, even in this industry, in all industries, but this one especially. Like, you can't just go out and get gigs. I've found, and yeah, I think that's kind of what stemmed my interest in speaking and how I got here. And then, with help from you, and I guess I would call you, when you are helping me with speaking, my speaking coach, and then with other things, it's a mentor. So, yeah, that's kind of how I got there, or how I got here.
And, public speaking doesn't come supernatural to anybody. And, watching your trajectory from the video of that first engagement in New York City to recently, I mean, it's pretty impressive, the change that you made, but that comes when someone commits to the process. They put the time in, they put the reps in, without going into all the details about, what we coached you on and kind of what you practiced, but just, what kept you motivated, right? Because just to get good at anything, and then under those pressure situations where you're in front of a large group of people and it's showtime, you got to do it. And I think part of you has that in you, because you can obviously perform in competitions, and you've got that ability to turn it on when need. But this is a different way to do it. And so I'm curious about, what kept you kind of excited about it? How'd you get through some of the trickier parts, and what did you what were any tips and tricks that you used to finally get it to click to where you can do a TED Talk?
Yeah, I think the rush is kind of what attracts me. One of the things that attracts me to it excuse me, I'm not competing anymore. And I'm not doing the most daring stunts, I should say, on skis anymore. So I think that the rush of kind of public speaking is exhilarating. It's really exciting. And even I remember practicing, I can practice to a wall or to you. And then as soon as I got to my parents, I would black out. And then I had to do a test run with some of the TED organizers, and I like fumbled a little bit. So I think, repetition, and you have to want to do it. Like I kind of embraced the nerves. Like, yeah, I was scared shitless before my TED Talk. Everyone's there. It's this beautiful venue. It's catered. There's people spent money to be there. Tickets were like 200 euros. It was a fancy event, and they had screened you. They had made sure that you'd practice. They expect you to perform at your kind of highest level. So yeah, I was shaking. I was shitting my pants, and it was almost kind of like in Old School, that movie where Will Ferrell gets up and he's like, I blacked out. I don't know what happened. Like, I got off stage and I said, was it good? Like, how'd I do? And everyone's like, yeah, it was great, Jake. And I'm like, I blacked out. So, it was definitely my biggest venue. And it was a different type of talk as well. Cause you're on the little TED circle and there's all these bright stage lights in your face. So all you see is black. So you're like, under the microscope there. And, yeah, I'm happy it went well. I feel a lot, kind of like a weight lifted off my shoulders, and I'm excited to do more. And I've started to send it out to some of the speaking bureaus I work with, and hopefully some of the hospitals can, repost it or share on social media. So I can do more of these, because it is fun. There's kind of the extremes of either end. There's people who want to do 2 or 3 speeches a week and fly around the country. I don't know if I'm that. That sounds like a lot of road time, but maybe 1 or 2 a month. And some cool destinations would be fun. I'm not, ecstatic to go to a Comfort Inn in Milwaukee and speak on behalf of something, but if I had to, I would. So I think, yeah, no, it just seems like a new, pretty cool adventure.
And you've got a lot of interesting things that you've cut your teeth on, everything from your trajectory as an athlete with asthma, which I think in and of itself is a great story that goes in a lot of different angles. You've got your trajectory from pro athlete into entrepreneur in a couple different, ventures. And I think you've also, you've got, I think there's the multiple aspects of the entrepreneurship things you do, right? So you've got, this business local sale, which I want you to tell us a little bit about.
Yeah, well, for sure.
And it works for both the consumer, right? People getting new gear from a pro who just needs a place to get rid of it. But then it also does great work for the environment, which is like keeping the stuff out of the landfills and getting good gear into people's hands that they'll use it. So maybe let's go there. So local sale is one of your businesses. So
yeah.
Give us a little color as to how that started and kind of where it's at.
Well, I think, yeah, I'll give you kind of the background quick version, because it's been through a lot of different changes, I should say. But essentially, my old business partner and I in Vancouver, we were friends at UBC, and we had just boxes of stuff from our sponsors, and we said, I need to think of a way to get rid of this. And in Colorado in the early mid 2000s, when I was still in high school, the old pros like Simon Dumont and Peter Olenek and those older pros, they're my age, they're a little older than me, but they used to have a big kind of yard sale, like pros yard sale at one of the houses on the hill. And I never went to it, but I always saw it on Facebook. A couple years after that, I don't know what happened to it, but I kind of had the light bulb of, maybe we could have like a pro sale. So my friend and I, we literally hung an extension cord between 2 trees at UBC, not even on like a main strip, just on like some back corner. We asked a friend's apartment, hung our stuff up, and sold a little bit of stuff. The next year we reached out to some more athletes in Whistler, some of the bigger names like Mark Abma and stuff. And everyone, needed this kind of venue to move stuff. So we did a few years of this really yard sale style. And then we said, hey, why don't we see if we can get a better venue? And we went to the university, and if you want to sell anything with the university, they want a big chunk of whatever you're making. So we went to the fraternity and kind of found this loophole where fraternities are privately owned. So we went to a fraternity on campus and said, hey, can we rent your venue for a day? And this venue, this specific venue at UBC in Vancouver, just happened to have like a bus stop right in front of it. It was kind of like main drag campus. And that year was 2013, I think, maybe 2012. And it was just bananas. Like, we just thought everything was being stolen. We didn't have enough people helping us. And we had just started, it was the year Square came out, or maybe the year after. So we bought a Square card reader and plugged it into our headphone jack on our phone. And we were so excited. I remember that like I bought a beanie from myself to test it. And it was so cool that I could swipe a credit card on my phone and it went into our bank account. And I was like, this is amazing. So we had a sale that year and it was pretty successful. And then we said, hey, well, why don't we try to go to all these ski hotbeds around North America? And our vision at the time was to show up with just kind of like a backpack, fly to Denver, collect stuff, give it back, and then go to the next city. So we, for a few years, flew around to Salt Lake City, Denver, Seattle, Reno, and had these pop-ups, which sort of worked. Not really a lot of stress, a lot of getting gear and then giving it all back, the stuff that you didn't sell, which in hindsight didn't make any sense. So then we're like, why don't we get a truck and we can drive the stuff that doesn't sell to the next spot and maybe it will sell there. So we did that. And in between all these spots just so happens to be places like Jackson Hole or Boise or Breckenridge or Bend, Oregon or Bellingham or all these little towns where we can stop and have pop-ups. So we'd partner with breweries or distilleries and show up there and make it kind of a block party event. Food trucks would come out. We'd have athletes. We'd have after parties, even though we really wouldn't show up at them. We'd have the ski clubs provide them. We'd work with the universities. So it turned into this cross-country tour where we do 2 in Canada and about 20 in the United States. And it was kind of like, we had 2 U-Hauls, a team of like 8 to 10 people, Airbnb in every spot, eating takeout food, not exercising, not getting ready for the winter, but it was pretty fun. And then I moved to Europe, ended up doing one in Innsbruck, Austria. And, not to toot my own horn, but I was kind of impressed that I could go to a place where I don't speak the language, not even my country, and make this sale work. And then COVID happened and I said, hey, well, I still have all these connections and all this gear. Why don't I try to do this online? So last year I bought a shipping container and put it at my parents' house in Telluride where I was stuck for COVID. And I'm sure people listening know that, or can imagine with my respiratory disease, I was literally a bubble boy. Like I couldn't see anybody. I stayed on our property in Telluride for basically a year. Grew out a beard, bleached my hair. I was kind of going crazy. Actually, I was full going crazy. I won't lie at all. I was getting help, talking to people. I was kind of losing my mind.
I remember us talking a couple of times.
And I definitely called you. Yeah. I even called you about a girl. Like I was not in a good space. But that being said, it is always good to talk to friends and talk to people if you have like I did. But I guess the dark is, it's always darkest before the dawn, or whatever that phrase is in Batman. Anyway, back to the sale. I ended up getting a shipping container, hiring 2 friends to drive everything down. I had kind of shipping containers sprawled across the country. I had one in Seattle. I had one in Salt Lake. I had one in Denver. So I kind of had all those to send to Telluride. 2 of my friends camped in my backyard and we literally fed them on trays because they couldn't come in the house. And we did this kind of inventory push. And I learned how to build an e-commerce store by myself with photo studio, everything that goes into tagging and collections. And there's a lot on the back end. And thankfully Shopify, the platform I use is really makes it easy, but there's still a lot I needed to learn. And I'm not literally a tech, I don't code, as they say. So yeah, that's kind of where we are now. I had 2 partners come in to the business in last winter in March, 2021. And, we raised some money and are able to buy gear from people and from brands. And yeah, like you said before, though, there's kind of the business kind of concepts twofold, but we're helping these athletes clear out stuff that they may not use by recycling gear, getting it out of their closet, but also getting it into hands of people who may not be able to afford it. Like the barrier to entry for skiing is incredibly high. Gear is incredibly expensive. lift tickets are absurd. We don't even need to go there. But if we can, like, I start screenshotting the messages and comments I get about people like, oh, I'm just a nurse in Bend, Oregon. Thank you for this. You're helping me be able to keep skiing, or like, people are really excited. And we ended up doing our first pop-up, since, 2017 this year in Boulder, and it was bananas. People were really excited to have us back. They just wanted a place to get good, cheap gear and have people tell them about gear. Like, not some salesman at REI where you walk in and they're just trying to sell you on anything. Like, they want people to be honest with them. Like, we have everything from brand new 2022 skis to really used skis that you would only buy for street jibbing, that have no edges. So we kind of have everything, and we only have really like one of each item. And some of it's, really used, $5 hoodie to brand new touring bindings. But we're really kind of leading. Yeah.
And I like having looked at the site just for curiosity. And then also there were a few things I was maybe kind of find for myself or friends. I like the rating system you have on there. So it's like, how used.
Yeah. The used scale.
Right. So like 10 out of 10 is it's perfect. And
no, other way around. So this is actually really confusing. I'm sorry to anyone listening. I had to make a decision, and I kind of went with usage scale.
Okay.
So maybe I should, change that. But 0 of 10 is brand new, and then 10 to 10 is most used, because I wanted something that I didn't want to have to do 10 of 10 like perfect, because people may still think it's used. So I wanted something to be 0, which if it's 0, if there's no scale, it's new. And then if it's 1 of 10, it's very lightly used. And then 10 of 10 is the most used. It's beat. So it's 50-50. I've had people say this makes sense. I've had people say, I never do. Why do you have it this way? But I had to make a decision. I can't change now because I'd have to change everything, but that's what we're working with.
Well, that's actually a fantastic clarification, because I had it completely reversed, and now I need to go back on the site to see if things I had checked off my list are actually what I really want. Would make sense. But yeah, I thought it was great. And I also think, having somebody who knows really how, like someone who is an expert or a pro who really can rate this gear and go, like looking at this thing, no, this is just cosmetic. Like,
like top sheet damage. Who cares?
Right. Who cares? Funny, versus this is completely beat.
I added a chat feature to the site like 3 weeks ago, and it's just, it's a lot of chatting. People are asking questions all the time. So it's good, but it's just me running it. So next year I'm going to get some help, but we're excited. We partnered with Protect Our Winters this year. So we'll be doing a lot of work with them other than just donations and sign up. We're their lowest level donor, but we're still donating to them. And I think anything we can to show that we are environmentally focused, it's a big part of it with recycling. We do have new products, but there's so much gear out there. And then there's the whole other level of peer-to-peer, which I'm not really at that level yet, but I have people ask me every day how they can sell stuff on the site. And I have to tell them it's only for pro or AMs. But if there was an option where people could drop stuff off or list theirs, obviously there's eBay and Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace and all these other avenues to sell things peer-to-peer, but I get asked all the time. So I don't know if it'll morph into that or happen, but I just know there's a ton of gear from influencers, photographers, pro athletes, people that work in brands, people that are switching jobs. If you work for a brand, you get a lot of stuff for a pretty heavy discount. And then you go if you worked at, North Face, then you go to Mountain Hardware, you have a whole new outfit of stuff. So there's many levels or layers, I should say, of places or people we can get gear from. And brands have this problem too. And, no brand wants to end up on, Sierra Trading Post or a Moose Jaw.
Right.
So hopefully we can kind of fill that gap a little. Oh, dude. And we have our little pirate logo, and I organically saw a pirate in the wild yesterday driving. It was like the coolest thing. It would be like if I saw my logo on like a subway, like someone wearing it on the train or on the bus, but I saw one on the back of a guy's car, and I was stoked, dude. I started screaming.
Well, and that was where I was going is if folks want to find the local sale, how do they log in? Where do they?
Yeah. Type in localsale.com. Okay. I'm sorry about this double S. I know it may be the death of me. Locals Sale. There are two S's, not locals, local sale. But yeah, more describing that in person, it gets confusing. But localssale.com, locals _ sale on Instagram. I need to kind of up my social game since it is just me running everything. I don't post as frequently, but we have a lot of good content. You know, if you message me, I'll respond back to you. But
perfect. And so the other business that you've been up to for quite a while is SnowLocals, and would love to hear a little bit about where that came from, where it's going, and then for sure how folks can kind of check in with you about what SnowLocals is all up to.
Yeah. SnowLocals is for the customer. We do custom trips and guided trips to Japan. I've been going to Japan since 2010, and I've done everything from hike, taxi, skin, ferry, train, plane, boat, whatever means of transportation to find the best snow there. There are over 500 ski resorts. There used to be over 1,000. It's amazing. And then on the other end, we also do a lot of work for brands or the Tourism Board of Japan. So it's kind of like a hybrid advertising agency / a travel agency that we want to bring people to Japan and show them how amazing it is. And that kind of started the similar way of I didn't go to Japan thinking, hey, I'm going to start a travel agency or start an advertising agency. I'm just going to go ski POW for free. And similar to the local sale, I just wanted to sell my gear that I had because I had way too much of it. I didn't know it was going to turn into like this e-commerce store that now is taking up all my time, and I have investors. I went over there. I was working for a blog called Unofficial Networks, and I was running the Whistler site, and they wanted to start Unofficial Japan. So I went over there with them for a week, and that year we went up to Hokkaido, and we were making handycam videos, just like little promo video or little daily videos about us skiing. And one of the marketing people for one of the resorts in Hokkaido asked us if we could make them a promo video with our content. And I was like, sure. So I went home and used our footage, added like a Smash Mouth soundtrack, like super bladoopy, just something I would never, even show anyone these days. And the marketing director loved it. It was like the greatest thing anyone ever given him. He brought it to all the trade shows. He was ecstatic. So the next year we were invited back to make another one. And over a couple of years that grew and grew for us, working with other resorts to getting a bit of a production budget. Because at first it was just, we were, for food, lodging, and tickets, we would make them a video. Then that was like, hey, can you pay us a little bit for this video? Hey, we can, run your social media to Westerners. And they didn't really know how to market to Westerners. I don't think they still do, that being the Japanese. And they had a lot of advertising from like the 90s. Mm-hmm. And they really like skiing corduroy. The Japan, there's not as much powder stoke over there. It's starting a bit more, but there isn't, many powder crazy skiers as there is in Western countries or in North America or Europe. So we started making promo videos for a couple of resorts. And at that same time, when I was still working for Unofficial, we would put the videos and the content on the website, and people would message us saying, hey, this looks amazing. How do we go ski that? And we got enough of these messages, and my brother was like, hey, why don't we just start a travel agency and start sending people to Japan? So that was a whole nother thing to learn. Like, how are we going to start a travel agency? How are we going to do currency conversion? How are we going to pay the Japanese? How are we going to reserve rooms? And they don't have like a central booking system in Japan. They still take bookings on a piece of paper and put it in like a filing cabinet for the next year. They don't have electric keys. It's like pretty behind the times for booking system, or something that we wanted to try to do with a travel agency. So with a lot of determination, we began to send people to Japan, and we would guide a couple clients every year. And at the same time, so we'd have 1 or 2, maybe 2 or 3 weeks of guiding. And then the rest of the time in Japan would be for video work, where we'd be doing work with brands. We'd be doing work for the Tourism Board of Japan, which was a recent contact of like 2016. We've done everything. We've had a women's only yoga week for a couple of years, where we rented houses, vans, had a bunch of ladies over to do yoga. We had brand weeks. We had homey weeks where friends would come and rent the house. We had a ski magazine media week where we had a PR firm helping us, and they organized a media week with journalists and photographers and sponsors. I mean, the company wears many. We've done a lot of things over there. I was a Japanese mascot once. I was Melon Kuma. I was a skiing melon bear, which was one of the highlights of my life because I may be the only gaijin to ever be a Japanese mascot. And I was under no circumstances allowed to take off the head. And sometimes I fell and it felt like sometimes when I would fall, the head would pop off and kids would scream. They'd scream, gaijin, gaijin, oh my God. And it was like, I just ruined their life. And they would chase us. Melon Kuma is kind of like a celebrity. He was actually on John Oliver. He's in Yubari region. It's this melon rich region of Hokkaido. And Hokkaido used to have a bunch of bears before the Japanese killed them all. But so we met the founder. He just put melon and put bear together and invented a melon bear. And he's hilarious. And
so I got to just jump in here for a second.
Yeah.
Because I have seen these videos before and I thought you guys were just filming somebody else skiing.
No, that was me. It was amazing. I can send you some or put some in the bottom. Like, dude, I would make kids cry. So, and there are so many funny like side stories to this story. One of them that the Japanese word for cute is kawaii and the Japanese word for scary is kawaii, like the same word. It's just like one, accent different. So they would yell kawaii bear or kawaii bear. And we didn't know. We just thought they were saying cute bear, but then they would run up and start crying or like run away and hug their mom. And we're like, why are they running away from us? We're cute. Turns out kawaii, scary and cute in the Japanese language are very similar. But yeah, it was a week of fun. It was, I think the thing I like about trips to Japan most, and I'm out there usually for all January and all February, is just the amount of laughter. Like Japan is the strangest place I've ever been. It makes either like perfect sense or no sense at all. Like the timing and the efficiency of the trains and the transport and food and how, and that stuff is really efficient. Or on the other end of the spectrum, like the ambulance drivers wear helmets. Like there's just some Japanese ridiculousness, for lack of a better word, that it is, unless you grew up there, when we find hilarious and we'll never fit in. But I think that, 2 months a year in Japan is just, you're laughing all day. Everything's a cartoon. Everything's yelling at you in Japanese in like a good way, in like an electronic, like, the ski lifts are talking to you. Everything's talking to you.
The bathrooms, the toilet seats.
Toilet seats are, I don't know if we should give that away. If you haven't been to Japan, the moment you land in Japan, I want you to go into a Japanese restroom and use the toilet seat. You will be pleasantly surprised.
Totally. I spent just over 2 weeks in Hokkaido a couple years ago skiing. Amazing. And yeah, it was unbelievable. The people were so welcoming. I didn't spend any time in Tokyo. I know that's also an awesome place to go. But we just went right to Hokkaido, and just the beautifulness of the landscape and the ruralness and the variety of food. I didn't realize that Japanese culture or cuisine was just so wide. I mean, so Japanese
sushi, dim sum, or not dim sushi. There's curries. There's like yakis. There's noodle dishes. There's gyoza. There's a lot. There's all sorts of them.
Yeah, it was amazing. The powder skiing was unbelievable, but just
that's a plus.
all these other things that I didn't expect, because I didn't, like most things, I don't research anything.
We come in.
I just jump right in. Yeah, exactly. I need to be a snow local. But that's so as you were telling me about some of these, the businesses, the thing that, and I learned a bunch actually, because there's obviously certain things we just never got into, but it reminds me of something I studied when at University of Vermont in some of the entrepreneurship small business classes, which is like, when you're building out a small business or any business for that matter, but definitely small business, it's like the ability to take it in other directions, right? To create something that's not so, narrow and dependent, right? And it's just like, so that's great, but it's also, I think, even more important is what you, and at times you and your brother, were willing to just go and explore and try, and like to just kind of go for it and leap. And I think that is such a important factor in making stuff happen.
Yeah. I think we got, I don't want to say luck, but Japan is kind of a very unique place where it's very hard to navigate. They don't speak much English. Like, it's not like you're planning a ski trip to Vail. So I think as long as they speak Japanese, there's going to be a need for our business. and we've seen it blow up, from 2010, 11, when I was there, I'd be the only person on the bus in Huckabee going to a place called Cortina. And now it's just packed with white people, which is great. Hopefully we have helped with that explosion, but sometimes we still have our secret spots. I think everyone's got to have their secret spots, but, yeah, it's been fun. And things have not worked. Like you said, the yoga week, we learned that unless you're teaching the yoga or you own the house, it's really hard to make money on a yoga retreat.
And I think that that's actually something I wanted to dig into, not to make you air dirty laundry, but
no, go for
it. There's always these lessons learned, right? So anything that you felt like, you guys blew up for yourselves, that you think people could benefit from or avoid falling in their own holes. Anything you want to share about these various experiences that you think you wouldn't do again?
Yeah, I mean, even going back to on the first business we touched on a local sale, like flying to one location and not trying to transport this gear. Like, I don't know why we tried to do that for a few years. I think there's things that you look back and you're like, wow, that didn't make any sense. Like for this year, I'm renting a warehouse in Boulder. And I've been Airbnb-ing. Look, I'm in a hotel right now, and that's a whole different story because I'm in a fight with Airbnb, but I've been bouncing around Airbnbs all fall. Really expensive. Boulder is crazy expensive. I should have just rented a house for the 5 or 6 months or however long I need this warehouse here, lived in the house and run the fulfillment and all the gear there. Like, I don't know why I didn't think of that. So I think you think of these ideas after the fact and you're like, oh, that would have been great. But in terms of SnowLocals, yeah, we tried the women's only. There's things that on paper look like they're going to work, but things always happen and come up. Like, nothing is ever going to go perfectly in whatever you do in life. Like, whatever, especially in my life, whenever I have a plan, it's like, let's have a plan, a straight line. It's just going to veer off and go somewhere else. So I think transport in Japan was a big one that we learned. Like, people want to be able to go places. And for the yoga specifically on this case study, we didn't have enough vans. So we were always taking time from our other week that we were guiding someone where we'd have to take their van and go pick up people from one house and drive them into town for dinner, whatever that was. So that was a big eye opener. Like, make sure. And that goes to when I'm planning trips for people, when I'm building someone a custom trip, in my crazy ADD squirrel brain, I want to send them to all the places, one day here, night travel here. No, that's not realistic. Do 2 or 3 places, maybe 2. They don't want to move around. It's a schlep moving with skis. So I think maybe whatever, it's not always what is best for you, and people are going to have fun, especially in Japan. Like, I've been there the last 10 years. Well, not last year, but from 2010 to 2020, every year, 2 months I was in Japan. So places that I may not think are the best place anymore because I've skied there so much, or maybe they're more crowded than the other place where it's my secret spot, I would be like, I don't want to send people here. And my brother would have to say, Jake, that's crazy. They're going to love it. This is their first time in Japan. Like, and they're not expert skiers or yada, yada. So I think maybe to answer your question, from 50,000 feet, you don't always have to look at things on how you would like it. Like, it's not always what is best for you. And maybe take a broader view of the whole situation and say what's best for the client.
Yeah, I think that is universal. And it actually came up, when we were talking about getting you ready for some of these public speaking events is we're all as humans, right, by nature, right, in order to stay alive and survive, we got to be somewhat or a lot self-focused. But whenever we can flip it, right, and we can make it about other people, and we can, whether it's as leaders, and we can really demonstrate that leadership for others, in the service sort of leadership, it doesn't reduce your power, you gain it all. Or as a speaker, when you're tailoring stuff for what the audience needs to hear versus what you want to share, right? Or in coaching, right, making it about the client and really creating that space for them to sort of bring up their own knowledge and their own solutions. So universally, I think it's a great concept is make it about the other and or meet people where they're at. Like, if with your ski example, right, you can meet them where they're at, but you can bring them where they want to go, and then let them tell you, hey, we want to go this other spot.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. And I think I am, part of just how I'm wired is I always want to tell the coolest or best story or be that guy. But I was pretty nervous, when you bring up speaking with this example. And I remember talking to you about this. I was pretty scared. There's going to be people up there talking about blockchain and cloud computing and all this stuff. I was like, who's going to care about like an asthmatic skier? And there was people talking about all sorts of stuff. There was a talk on blockchain. There was a talk on the cloud. There was a talk on crypto. There was a talk on all sorts of things. Crypto is blocked. But so I think I navigated that. I did all right. I felt after my talk, like, that fits in. Where before I was maybe a bit more nervous, not a bit. I was very nervous that I wasn't going to hold up because I didn't have a story. And then if you make it about the audience or about how anyone can relate, which is what I did at the end of the talk. And for you guys listening, please go watch it. You're going to have to watch it. It's only 10 minutes. I think you'll enjoy it. I think everyone can relate. And I don't, the first bit's about me a little bit to introduce me, but I think I talk more about me with my disease. And then I bring it into a global issue about how everyone's labeled. So
yeah. What's it called? I mean, we'll do a link in the notes to the podcast you're doing today, but what's it called and where can they find it?
You can Google Jake Cohn TED Talk or Jake Cohn TEDx. It's on the TED website. It's on the TEDx YouTube. There's, I think, millions of videos on there now though, so don't go scrolling. But yeah, if you just Google my name and TED, it should be probably the first one.
And what's your talk called?
Think Beyond Your Labels.
Awesome. And before we move too far past it, what's the best way to check out the SnowLocals site?
Yeah, so you can go to snowlocals.com. There's a ton of info on there about Japan. You can even navigate through there, see some of our videos. There's a YouTube. You can go to SnowLocals Instagram, which has a ton of content, just pretty much action pow. But yeah, you can send us a message. Definitely, you can read our story on SnowLocals. We give away a lot about resorts in Japan on there. So, if you want to plan your own trip, go in there and learn as well. But yeah, if you're interested in going to Japan, they're going to be closed this year again, which is really unfortunate. And I think 2023 is going to be just explosion. It's going to be bananas. Everyone's pent up. They want to go ski pow in Japan. We already have all of our bookings from 2021 and this year, 2022 rolled over to 2023. So it's going to be madness. And yeah, if you want a trip, send us a message. We're happy to work some out with you. Maybe we can even guide you. We have a lot of other pro skiers that we work with that are also guides. So it'll be fun.
Fantastic. Well, Jake, look, I really appreciate you jumping on the show with me today. Your stories that you're actually out literally telling, and then all the cool things you've done with your businesses. It was great to see some and hear some details on those. And look, all the best this winter, and I'm sure we will cross paths soon enough.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, thanks for having me on. This is like I said, my first podcast. So hope maybe in 5 more, if we do this in 5 years, I'll be fine-tuned again, like my speaking career.
Oh no, you crushed it.
I'm just kidding.
You crushed it. Well, look, all the best and have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, Aaron. Thanks, man. We'll put all the info to everything in the description below. So yeah, arigato.
Yes. Have a good one. The Trailbreaker Podcast is created by Aaron Feinberg with production support provided by Michael Morey. More interviews and videos can be found at aaronfeinberg.com.